What is up, everybody? This is Chase, and welcome back to the Wellness Center podcast. I am so happy that you guys are here with me today. I have had a great week. I'm feeling super high energy, and I am just so excited for the guest that I have on today, guys. I've been waiting for this guest for about a month that we've been scheduled out. So I, again, am just eternally grateful for his ability and willingness to come onto my show to share his lessons and skills with you today. Now, I want to give every one of you an invite that as you're listening to this episode, please think of someone that could benefit from the lessons that my phenomenal guest is going to teach you guys today and share it with that person as you're listening to this story. Not only as a personal touch to show that person that you love them, but so that you can further help the Wellness Center podcast grow its tribe. Please, please, please do that. Please also make sure to like and subscribe to my videos and come back because I'm releasing awesome content with awesome people every single Friday. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on my phenomenal guest. So my guest started a weight loss journey from a shy fat kid to a model who is currently signed with Ford, Elite, and Wilhelmina. Please forgive me if I butchered that name. He is an ongoing personal development coach that has led him to a life of resilience and beauty. He teaches three simple, powerful principles to get ahead and on top of their finances. He has 13 ways to save money to invest more in themselves as a personal finance coach. He has suffered from impacts of low testosterone and other things. And of course, he spends every waking minute doing his best with his company, Empowering Men. So without further ado, I'm going to butcher his last name. We've got Bradley Jarryd on the phone or on the podcast. Bradley, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Chase. Thanks so much for that introduction. And you got Jarryd right, because that's my middle name. My last name I wouldn't even give just because it's 11 letters. It's a mumble. It's lots of M's and N's in there. So I was like, you know what? Brad Jarryd is good. And the modeling agency was Wilhelmina. So that's the name. If you're out there, you're like, Wilhelmina, is that one? Wilhelmina was one. It's one of the bigger ones. It's been around forever, but I used to model with them. So I'm really excited about diving into, whatever we want to talk about, whatever I could provide value to your audience. But thanks again for having me.
Jarryd, or Bradley, I apologize. Thank you so much for coming on and taking the time to be here with me today. One of my big things is empowering men. As I've gone through my meditations and my mantras, one of the things that I say is I am a warrior for the hearts of men. So to have a fellow brother who his whole company is about empowering men, I think this is going to be a really beautiful episode today. So yeah, Brad, if you could just give us a few cookie cutter answers as to who you are, just so like I and the listeners today can get to know you a little bit better.
Sure. So I'm a only child of immigrant parents from South Africa and Mauritius. Mauritius is this tiny little island off of Madagascar. It's like the Hawaii of Africa. It's very beautiful. A lot of Europeans vacation there. That's where my dad's from. He moved to South Africa in, I think, 82 or something. Met my mom. They had me in 86. And then when I was 4 years old, I moved to Tampa, Florida with them. And I started my life as an American. And, as a kid, as an only child, especially being introverted, I did not relate very much to my parents. So as much as I love my parents, we've never been very close because they moved to the States when they were around 40 years old. They pretty much stuck to their culture. And I knew that I had to adjust to American culture very quick, or I was going to be very lonely. And so I always turned to food for comfort because food was always there. Because if friends weren't in the neighborhood or I couldn't meet anyone, hey, there were brownies, there's Dr. Pepper, there's all that. So I was an overweight kid. And of course, if you're an overweight kid, things are tougher, right? It's especially because you don't feel good taking your shirt off at the pool. You see what the popular kids look like, how they dress, all of that. And sometimes there's an overweight kid that's quite popular, but for the most part, you see, wow, these popular kids are playing sports, they're fit, they're the cheerleaders, there's the football captain, or they're on the basketball team or the baseball team. And so I always wanted more, right? Seeing myself as a kid, I was like, I want to fit in with these kids because they look like they're having a better time than myself. And so when I was around 12, 13 years old, that's when I started my first diet. And my first diet before the internet was as big as it is, and before you could just use ChatGPT or a Google search to find stuff, I remember my first diet being 4 bowls of cereal per day. because I looked on the back of the box and I saw 150 calories. I said, hey, that's a low number. I didn't understand serving size. I didn't understand the nutrients, the protein content, the carbs, all that. But I ended up losing weight off of 4 bowls of cereal a day as a kid. And I enjoyed it because I like cereal. But just from losing weight, gave me a sense of confidence of, hey, I could actually change my life. I could change my body. Now let me look at to how these kids dress and how they socialize and how they talk to girls and all these kinds of things. So that really propelled my personal growth story. And then I graduated college at USF in Tampa in 2010, and in 2010 in Florida, the market was just destroyed. There were all these condo buildings. They were all vacant. No one had actually went through with their purchase. They just left their deposit there. The economy was so slow, and there were only a couple fields where you could get jobs. And I remember in a year prior, when I was working at a nightclub as my college job to pay some bills, I got uh, kind of recruited by the local modeling agency there saying, hey, I think you could do some jobs here and there with us. And I remember feeling so flattered by it because being an overweight kid to then being recruited as a model was like the ultimate validation. Like, wow, oh my God, like I put in this effort, I came from here, and now someone is coming up to me saying that they could get me work based on how I look. That's amazing. And because that happened, I said, you know what, let me go down to Miami and at least pursue this career because my parents always had dead end jobs. There's nothing good in 2010 in Tampa. Everything's just either you're in the medical field or you're in engineering or accounting or something I didn't feel passionate about. And so I said, I went down to Miami and started pursuing a career in male modeling. And it was definitely an up and down journey. It wasn't nearly as glamorous or fun as you might imagine. There was a lot of struggle, a lot of rejection, and truth be told, there were models that were just 10 times better than me. They were had 6 packs and 8 packs and better jaw lines and all that. And I found myself not booking a lot of work. However, because I'd studied finances, because my parents are immigrants and they came up from countries where debt is frowned upon, I had more of an advantage with financial literacy than a lot of these models and actors that I was around, and I actually started helping them do better things with their money because, hey, it's 2013. Maybe instead of getting bottle service and a Rolex, you should put money down on a house because there's a 9% cap rate on this 3-2 house right here, and this is a very good cash flow for you. This could be great. And so that started my journey into coaching others with their finances. And then after a few years, I was like, you know what? Those Visit California commercials look so cool. Everyone's having fun. There's Betty White in the commercials and Arnold Schwarzenegger and Shaun White. It looks like California is the place to go. And I moved to Los Angeles for the first time in 2015. Loved it. And then ended up moving back to Florida a couple years later to regroup. But then in 2019, before COVID, which was horrible timing, I moved back to California here in Los Angeles, and I'm not moving ever again. So, there were a lot of things in that story there, but personal development, financial literacy, and always just trying to find my home has been themes of my life.
That's amazing, Brad. Thank you so much for sharing that awesome story too. I love that you just took that and actually gave us a lot of good fruit to hang on. Like I feel like I know a good portion of who you are, which makes me excited. So now we get to dig in a little bit. So take us back to some of those younger days, Bradley, when you were a young kid, living on brownies and Dr. Pepper. And what was like mental health for you back then? What were some of the struggles that you had with your mental health?
I think it was always loneliness and trying to figure it out, right? Because I
Yeah.
couldn't look to my parents for guidance that I could trust because they loved me, but it was not necessarily the best advice for someone who wanted to be cool or just fit in with friends, right? It's like your mom will say, "Oh, this sweater looks great on you. I love, it's amazing." And then you go to school and then you get made fun of because that sweater is what a grandma would give a kid. It's not the Abercrombie and Finch muscle fit sweater. And so I think for me, being an only child, there's pros and cons, right? So the pros are that I was able to rely on food, rely on video games, rely on TV to pass time and kind of numb myself to being lonely and understanding, hey, there might not be any kids in the neighborhood. So that was probably it. But I will say I was fortunate in the sense that because I was taller, because there were other kids that were very overweight, that were, maybe had lice or had some real issues, I was never targeted to be made fun of. I was one of those kids that was in the middle, that I was safe from ridicule, but just kind of there, doesn't really have a group, doesn't have a niche. So as a kid, I think for me, it was just loneliness was the biggest thing. Is I just did not have friends. I didn't have brothers. I didn't have anyone to learn from, and it was trying to figure this out on my own, which is very frustrating when you don't have the internet, you don't have all these resources to say, "Hey, I'm going to be your older brother, your virtual older brother. This is how it works, the way that these kids have nowadays."
Yeah, that's thank you for sharing all of that with us. I mean, there's so much that we can dig in there. The one question that came to mind is coming from a different country, what was kind of like the day-to-day culture that you knew, and what kind of culture were you trying to fit into?
I think it was that I never understood what the culture was for my parents just because I was so young that when I moved here, all I saw was what they were doing. But they never went out and made friends. My mom had a couple of her friends from work, but nothing close. My dad didn't have any friends. He didn't try to make friends. So they weren't social at all. They were just doing their thing, having phone calls with their family members on the other side of the country. So I just remember having these names. Oh, this is your cousin, this is your uncle. But if they walked down the street, I'd never know it was a family member. It would just be, oh, is that a stranger? Oh, kind of looks like me, kind of similar skin tone. But uh, when I saw how my friends' parents, especially the ones I really liked, interacted, they just had so much energy. They were pursuing their career. They would go boating on the weekend. They had family nearby. They had old friends. They just seemed like they were enjoying life a lot more. And I just wanted to be a part of that. And my one of my closest friends' dads became my kind of adopted dad in a way. I would never tell him that, but he was the guy that I said, "Oh, you have it together. You're smiling all the time. You're having dinner this way. You're having these big steaks, and you're going out to these places. You're going to the football games. You're getting season tickets to the Buccaneers, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's my team. Growing up in Tampa, like that's the coolest thing. My parents football. I mean, even something as silly as sports. When you grow up in a sports town, that's what a lot of people do. And so when you're with parents that come from a country where soccer's the only sport or rugby's the only sport that they play, I don't care about basketball. I don't watch basketball or football or baseball. This is all weird, but that's such a big part of being able to connect with other kids, right? When you're a kid, everyone's wearing, hey, did you get the new Shaquille O'Neal jersey? Or, I'm dating myself, the Penny Hardaway jersey or the Michael Jordan jersey or, the Jerry Rice jersey or whatever. And when your parents are so far away from that mentally and culturally, that's where you have to just kind of find those friends and the parents of those friends that can teach you how to just get acclimated. And so I think without even knowing this ahead of time, I think sports was one of the biggest things that my parents didn't relate to that I had to relate to these other kids with as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I can imagine being alone in those young ages, trying to figure this all out was quite hard on you. Like it definitely taught you how to work hard and be resilient. And I can definitely see that now. So as you're going through all of this, I would love to kind of go into my second question, which is the hero's journey. So Brad, if you could take us through like an extreme trial or a pivotal moment in your life that you had to undergo, yeah, please share that with us.
Oh man. Well, this would probably be 2019 when I got in a relationship. This is when I'm living in Miami. I'm on this app called Tinder, and I see this girl pop up, really pretty girl, has a professional picture, and I matched with her, and she messaged me right away. And when if you're on a dating app and they only have one or two pictures, especially just one picture, you get very cautious because you go, oh, why do you only have one picture? Is this a fake account? Are you hiding something? Are you catfishing? And we ended up matching, and she lived on South Beach, very close by, and we met up maybe an hour or two later. She was a model from Germany, and I believe she was with my same agency. So it was great. A lot of rapport. We ended up hanging out and we started dating, and it was the messiest, ugliest situation where we dated, then became friends, and then my roommate at the time, a close friend of mine, was trying to get us apart and actually trying to divide us because he wanted to date her. And it turned into about 11-month, incredibly toxic, horrible situation where in hindsight, I made a promise to her not to tell him what was going on so she could reveal to me what was going on. She said, "Hey, promise you won't say anything. This is what's going on." But because I made that promise, I valued my word more than my own, I think, sanity, my own health in many other ways, because I ended up living with him for another 7, 8 months as he was trying to do this, but I kept my word to her. And so it was one of those, it was tough because you have two values that are very important. Hey, I want to speak my truth, but I also want to keep my word. And I made the promise to this person not to say anything. How do you balance that? How do you choose one over the other when you already chose one before knowing all the information? So long story short, relationship eventually imploded, as you would imagine. And to top it all off, we ended up getting back together a year or two later. And this was March of 2020. So imagine you are good at saving money. You are very good at delaying gratification, which I am. I'm like, hey, no, don't get the expensive car. We can invest it. Hey, don't go on vacation because we can invest it. If you have that mindset of, hey, do the right thing now so you could live a bigger, more prosperous life down the road, and you take that money to invest, and which I did in 2020, right when COVID was announced and the stock market crashed. I invested most of my life savings with this this woman who I was now with again, only for her to pass that money on to her quote unquote broker in Germany, and I never see that money again. So that was, yeah, that was tough. When you say, hey, I've scrimped and saved and sacrificed for 10 years, not doing all these things all these other friends of mine are doing, buying, having, because I know that I should be investing. I've learned you got to invest. And I make one critical mistake, which is to take it out of my own hands and put it into someone else's hands, who technically I was engaged to her. I didn't mention that part, but
Mhm.
I thought, hey, this is safe. She's a trustworthy person. She told me the truth about my old best friend. She's always been good with money. She's always been very professional. And for this to happen, for 75% of my life savings to go in her hands and then just poof, it's not 75% of life savings, it's 10 years of sacrifice. So, and then just being able to say, well, now what? Like what I did all the right things. I made one critical mistake and now it's all wiped away. So that was tough. And then to say, all right, I'm starting all over again. What was the last 10 years for? Just character development? Is that it? Because I really would have liked some ROI besides character development.
Some humility there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine that was a hard lesson. And thank you for sharing all of those details about all of that story. I mean, I could tell that there's so much pain there in the past that you've been able to work through. And I'm really excited to get to that appreciation there. And I think there's some more here, though, that I would love to know. So, the 11 months that you're kind of going through this terrible stuff with your roommate and your girlfriend at the time, what were some of the day-to-day stories that subconsciously you were telling yourself that
Well, I mean, this is that I told her this, but this is the truth is I was so close to him as a friend since 12 years old. I mean, this is an old friend that I questioned if I was the bad guy in the story.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that's tough because I think most people go around saying, I'm the good guy, I'm the protagonist, and everyone else is crazy. This is the antagonist. And there was a point where I said, he's someone I look up to and respected so much. Am I the bad guy here? Am I
Mhm.
the one that, I'm am I the one that needs to rid myself of the situation or get out because I'm the one that is stopping something that's beautiful? And when he thought that way, and then the times where she would listen to him more than me and turn on me, or not turn, but just kind of take his side more than me, that's when it really started to mount. Because when you put your trust in the opinions of others, or there's certain people you say, hey, this person is a good sense, has a good sense of judgment, good character, all of that, and those are the people that say that you're bad or imply that you're wrong or bad. It seeps in for sure, and I think it
Yeah.
should, because it's built up over an amount of time and trust. So, it's like someone random on the internet saying, "Oh, you're whatever," and you don't care because there's no credibility behind that person. But if you really admire Dwayne the Rock Johnson, and Dwayne the Rock Johnson says, "Hey, you're a piece of crap," and he doesn't say you're a piece of crap to hardly anyone, he says that to you, you'd be like, "Oh my God, if The Rock says that, it might be true. It must be true."
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And around that time, like, how was your own self-image? Like, how did you view yourself around that time in your life?
I mean, that was probably the most fragile, when I didn't know what to think of myself. I knew that I tried to do good, but maybe that just wasn't enough, right? Maybe I'm trying to do good, and I'm trying to have a big heart and take care of others and do big things, and make the world a better place. But then why is this happening? And why am I being viewed this way? So yeah, it's hard to pinpoint it, but that was when I had lost the most confidence in myself for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine that was so hard. Thank you for being willing to share that deep, vulnerable part of you. And so you end the relationship. It's gone for a while. A couple of months come back. Obviously, you're back with this woman. You get engaged, and she takes, she takes your money and invests it, and it disappears. What were the feelings that went through you when you learned that that money wasn't coming back?
I mean, I just so much anger, just so much anger. I think anger, and then hopelessness, deflatedness, just like, why can't I catch a break, right? Why am I getting punished for trying to do the right thing and the right time? And why am I giving people chances when I shouldn't? Or is the lesson that I shouldn't trust people? I shouldn't give people chances? Is that what you're trying to tell me, God? Is that what, universe is? Are you saying, hey, don't trust people? Don't look at the good in people? But so much anger, just because of how much was sacrificed for the 10 years in order to be able to invest. And the investment technically went up like 50% quite quickly, because if you look at the stock market back in March 2020, you see it just dip for about 2 days straight once quarantine was announced. And that's when we invested. And I mean, I got instant returns, like the theoretical returns. And yeah, it was one of those things where, I've been a very strategic person. I always try to think ahead. I always try to plan the next move, and just trying to plan my life. I think that those couple of years really taught me how little I could plan my life, that God could throw a curveball that just destroys everything. And I've never had a health issue, thank God. So it's never been like, oh, I have cancer, or there's something crazy that's getting thrown in my way, or a bad car accident or anything like that. But for me, this was the wake up call that I can't just say I'm going to get married at this time to a person, and I'm going to invest here, and then it's going to come back, and it's going to grow, and then by this year. So you can plan things in a way, but you can't plan for these curveballs that just get thrown your way. And I didn't ask enough questions. I didn't take matters into my own hand. I put the money in someone else's hands that I trusted. And so there's definitely fault on my end. And it was a lot of anger towards myself. It was anger
Yeah.
towards her, but a lot of anger towards myself. Yeah, and that lasted a long time.
Yeah, I can imagine. Was there any suicidal ideation throughout that time?
I think it's never gotten that deep, and I would say that
Good.
my daily personal developments since 2014, that's something I've done every single day since 2014, so about 10 years now, has always kept me afloat. But the line that I would say a lot is, what's the use? What's the point? Why even bother? Those types of things, where
Right.
it's more just why give effort? What's the point of giving effort if this is going to be the result every single time? But it never gotten that deep. And I think, it might be just because of my natural demeanor. It could be because of my childhood. If you, for those out there that follow astrology and all that, I have a lot of earth signs in me. So I'm very grounded by nature. I'm just a grounded guy. So I'm not like these very highs and lows type of people. But regardless, it was never that. It was just always, why even try? How about just move somewhere, get a little simple job, hide away from the world, and that'll just be my life until one day when I die.
And write it out until you're done.
Yeah, just ride it out. That's it. Wait till
Yeah.
die.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of the raw, vulnerable stuff that you have. I know that I've empathized with you in points in my life, and I feel like in my heart so much for you and everything you've gone through. What hard trials. And I'm really excited now to start talking about some coping skills because I think this is the good stuff right here. This is going to be the meat on the bone. So, Brad, you get to this point where you obviously say, all right, time to start being better. So what were some of the coping skills that you developed through all of this, and how have they evolved over time?
Losing weight when I was a kid propelled me into personal development to a degree, but then I'd lost my way with that in the 2010s up until 2014 when I met a fellow model who was listening to Tony Robbins and he was quoting Jim Rohn and all these guys. And it reignited my interest into personal development because a lot of the models that was around, they they only focused on their physiques. It was only physical health. That was pretty much it because that's what paid the bills. And then besides that, there was nothing spiritual, there's nothing mental, there's nothing emotional, there's nothing relational. It was just that. And back in 2014, there were these things called podcasts that were starting to be talked about. It wasn't big yet, but it was like, hey, podcast, there's this. And I said, all right, well, let me just as a little habit. And I learned that this is an atomic habit. So if you read the book Atomic Habits, phenomenal book, but this was my atomic habit was when I would walk around South Beach in the morning. I would do it just to get some exercise, some fasted cardio, get a little color, some tan. I would just listen to one personal development podcast. Could be on anything. It could be real estate investing, could be spiritual, something relational, it could be on, finance, whatever it is. And I would just listen to one of those per day, and then I'll listen to music and go on with my day. And that little habit has been something I've kept for 10 years straight. But what I didn't realize is the music that was going in my ear before was being replaced by something very positive, and that was going to compound over time. And after a couple of years of that, I was having less breakthrough moments because I had heard a lot of the things being repeated over and over again. And I just started to be able to compare one thought leader to another. But the first year or two was like, oh my God, quantum mechanics, quantum physics, meditation, mindfulness, breath work. Holy crap, this is just insane. And then there's a point where I go, okay, this is now my environment. This is now my psyche. When someone talks about breath work, I could then say, oh, how would Wim Hof talk about that? How would this person talk about that? Talk about prayer and meditation. Oh, this person kind of articulates like this person, but they have a lot more humor or they have a lot more technical knowledge. So, in terms of the coping skills, it's always been put healthy things in me, right? I don't have the junk food anymore. I haven't had that for years. I'll have a cheat meal, but I'll still have quality ingredients so that I don't hurt my body. It might just be higher in calories, but I'll have a homemade pizza, but it's organic dough, organic ingredients. And so at least if I'm having an excess meal, I'm still treating my organs and my body good. And then I don't watch anything negative. I don't listen to anything negative. I just want to put in the stuff that's going to help me grow and that's going to help me laugh and make life more of this cool, fun experiments that's filled with miracles versus this dark, depressing hole where if you watch the news or you watch them, I won't watch scary movies. Same thing. I won't watch scary movies. I won't listen to anything very dramatic or anything that evokes those emotions. And then obviously exercise and sunlight. I mean, I grew up in Florida. I live in California now. The idea of not getting sunlight every single day, not being able to go outside and just walk and feel the air and just be present with the moment. I don't know how I would operate without that. So those have been very simple things I do every single day. And then during quarantine, when LA was closed down, because LA was one of the toughest cities, I still walked. Hey, stay at home. I'm not staying at home. I'm walking because if I stay at home in a city that was meant for collaboration, it was meant for events to happen and people to get together, I'm going to go crazy. And that was when it was tested the most because the gyms were closed down. So I always tried to get as much exercise as possible, as much personal development in my ears, and then humor as much. Simpsons shows. When I was eating those brownies, drinking the Dr. Pepper, I had the Simpsons on. I had that '70s show on. I will still watch it. To this day, I'm going on a rant here, but to this day, I don't have cable TV, but I have an antenna for whatever. Like if it's a live sporting events, it'll be on that. And there's one channel my antenna gets called Laugh, Laff. And on Sundays, they have 10 hours straight of home improvement, which was one of my favorite shows from the 90s. I will literally just watch five, six, 7 episodes in a row of home improvement on Sundays just to get those old school 90s laughs and that nostalgia. And that does wonders for me. That is like so simple, but I'm not watching the news. I'm not watching that, but I'll watch Tim Allen and his 90s humor and just crack up louder than anything I see on TV today. But those kind of things just really help me take things in a greater way. So nothing gets too low.
That's amazing. I love that. And, it's funny when you talk about home improvement, the only thought that came through my head was more power. Oh, ho,
Oh,
ho,
oh,
ho,
oh, oh,
ho.
oh. Oh man, yeah.
I grew up watching Home Improvement. My dad loved it. He also watches Last Man Standing now.
Yeah, I started watching that too a couple years ago. And so if you're out there and you're not familiar with it, it's kind of a spin-off where Tim Allen is now the father of 3 daughters, and one of the daughters has a kid, and it's in Denver versus Detroit, but it's similar in many ways. And they actually have cameos from the Home Improvement cast on Last Man Standing. So Jill, the wife, has appeared. I know Jonathan Taylor Thomas has a small role. Al had a couple episodes where he was featured as well. So it's like if you loved Home Improvement, at least watch Last Man Standing once or twice. But just to get these laughs in, I think it does wonders.
Yeah. So do you know much about the science behind laughter and what it actually does for you?
No, but I'd love to learn it. Tell me.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it either,
Oh,
to be honest with you. But no, I love that you look to laughter. I know there's a study called What the Bleep Do We Know? And it talks all about the positive changes that things make on like the water crystals in our body. So laughter, positive music, positive words, positive affirmations actually change the crystal makeup in your body drastically.
so okay, what's crazy about you mentioning that? So
Mhm.
Dr. Joe Dispenza is one of my favorite guys, and he's in that series or in that documentary, What the Bleep Do We Know? There's a station called Gaia on that you can get on Amazon, and it's a lot of crazy concepts. It's a lot of quantum mechanics and spirituality, and some of it's very far-fetched, and or not just far-fetched, but it's so unconventional that it's not going to relate to most people. But I do like to see what's out there. And the funny thing is, I've seen What the Bleep Do We Know? But what's crazy about you mentioning it is I literally put that on last night and I'm about halfway through. So if I turn my TV on and go to it, it'll say resume What the Bleep Do We Know? Just because it's been probably 6 months or a year since I've watched it last. So crazy synchronicity right there.
Yeah, I personally don't believe in coincidences at all. I
Mhm.
definitely think there's something spiritual that kind of guides us all. And yeah, no, so definitely needed to be talked about today. That's so cool. Dude, thank you for sharing all of those awesome coping skills that you've done. And I love that you talk about the compounding effect. Have you ever read that book, The Compound Effect?
No, it's something I teach in terms of financial literacy because it's a
Mhm.
very powerful tool, and Albert Einstein referred to it as the eighth wonder of the world, compound
Mhm.
interest. But I have not read the book, but it is something very incredible. But yeah, I'd love to hear if you have any great takeaways from it.
Yeah, it's kind of just that small, consistent changes over a long period of time produce the best results. Like in this book, The Compounding Effect, one of the case studies he talks about is a man who stopped using extra sauce or extra toppings like mayo on his sandwiches. So it just changed like 200 calories in his daily diet. And over the course of 2 years, he lost 25 pounds.
Well, so there's an example in Atomic Habits, and Atomic Habits is just one of these phenomenal books. But the the UK cycling team, the British cycling team, hired a coach that said instead of doing these big drastic changes, so we go from this mediocre cycling team up to a world champion team, instead of doing big things, we're going to do a lot of tiny things. And that was just changing from their home uniform to their alternate uniform, which was a fraction of an ounce lighter. And each rider would have their sleep patterns recorded, so they would get the perfect pillow so that they'd get an extra 5 minutes of deep sleep per day. And so they did this across hundreds of things. And the British cycling team went from one Tour de France win in over 100 years to 5 years after hiring this coach, winning the Tour de France, several gold medals, and then they repeated 4 years later at all the events. And when you think of how many aspects of our life are we involved in a single day, from waking up, okay, now I twist this way, I have this thought, I brush my teeth. You could do so much because every single day you get to repeat it. You get a do-over. So it's like I wake up today, if I just get 1% better today, well, then I get to compound on that tomorrow and then tomorrow. So, like a couple examples, like one of our clients, he's lost 50 pounds since November 1st. So he went through his birthday, through Thanksgiving, through Christmas, through New Year's. And we focused on, okay, yes, you need to change these bigger things. But one thing that he just started a couple of weeks ago is he always works from his garage sitting down. And we said, why don't you just stand up? Why don't you walk? He bought a standing desk with a little treadmill, like a separate treadmill attachment at the bottom. He's lost like 7 pounds in the last few weeks just from walking for 3 hours while he works instead of sitting. That's one of those small changes that yields massive results, because guess what? Every single day you're going to be in front of your computer regardless. So instead of sitting in front of your computer working, how about stand? And instead of just stand, what if you could walk at 1 mile an hour? Multiply that times 5 days a week, times 50 weeks a year, and that's thousands and thousands of calories.
Right. Yeah. No, the mentality that I teach specifically, I call it the 1% mentality. It's changing one aspect of your body, whether it's a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, or relational, 1%. One of those 1% a day. And over the course of the year, I think you can appreciate this as a financial coach. There's a 365% return.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Right.
insane. I mean, and I think that's the cool thing with health and with finance is that they're two things, and a mental health as well. They're things that we take with us until we die. This is not like a short-term thing. So it might as well be, hey, get good at it now, find some systems, get better, because we want to take care of our health and we want to take care of our finances until we die, because they're going to be relevant until the day we die. So, in terms of when I was lonely and I'm living in Los Angeles without any friends because I'd moved back here and most people I knew moved away, and I'm like, all right, well, what do I do? It's every single day I had to just focus on something to get better so that when it was over with, I was at least further ahead. But every single day was, okay, what can I listen to that's going to propel me the most? And every day you have to just start over with that anyway. So why would you go down a trajectory that's going to lead you to someplace negative versus a trajectory that's going to lead you somewhere where you ultimately want to go?
I love it. I absolutely love it. So, Brad, I know we're running a little short on time here. So, looking back at this amazing conversation, looking back at your amazing life of resilience and everything you've had to go through, what can you appreciate about everything you've had to experience up to this point in your life?
I think when you go through hardship, you see what you're made of and you're just capable. You could walk around with your chests out knowing that you could handle tough things. And being in LA now and seeing a lot of these kids that went to school here that had rich parents and well-connected parents, they have a good life, a very good life. But I don't know if they have the depth of character. I don't know if they have the mental toughness, the emotional toughness to go through hardship. And LA kind of has like this, kind of joke where, oh, everyone has a therapist, everyone is this. And it's a very kind of soft city in a way because the weather's great. We have the outdoors. People mostly complain about the barista not having the cashew milk today, and I had to go back to almond milk, kind of stuff like that. And I think, I can't really say, hey, all of these things happened because of this reason, and now it is paid off in this way. But in terms of just knowing that we can go through quarantine again, and if I was stuck by myself, if I didn't have friends, if I was betrayed by a close friend, if I had lost all my money, if all these things happened, I would be okay, right? You just know that I would be able to get through it, and I would be stronger now than before. And if I'm able to get through that, then what else am I capable of getting through versus, hey, as long as everything's good and my money's there and my job's here and my wife's here and all of this is good, I'll be okay. Well, then you're not really battle tested. So I feel like just being battle tested, you can have a lot more confidence knowing that things don't have to be perfect for you to be okay.
I love that. Thank you so much. And I think all of that is so true and so valuable. There is so much humility and there's so many lessons that can be learned through going through hard trials.
Yeah, I mean, it happens for a reason. I mean, sometimes I think to myself, hey, maybe my soul came down in this formation just to learn a lot of patience and a lot of character. And this life was really just for character development. It wasn't supposed to be the life where I just have it easy and I'm the son of a prince of a country and I have 9 Bugattis that I drive around in and that's it. So I like to just tap into something higher and just say there's a reason for me being here at this moment. There is a lesson to be learned. And honestly, when I think of the business that my partner and I run, and he came from a small town in Portugal where he couldn't even afford to finish school. It's not like here where, yeah, of course you finish school. His parents couldn't afford to send him to school, so he had to work at making shoes at I think 14, 15 years old. He got discovered as a model and became a huge international model and all this. But thinking about how do you inspire other people when you don't have hardship of your own, right? You don't want
Right.
to hear the story of the person who's like, yes, well, my dad was a billionaire, and then here I am, and then he just gave me this money, and I had all the mentors, I had all the education, and then I built this company. That doesn't help other people out there without resources.
Right.
So I do think to myself, the hardship adds to the story that I could then share with others, just like we're doing right now. So then others without many resources can say, hey, you know what? If he could do this, I could move across the country. It's not so scary. I could start over after losing all my money. It's not the end of the world. I still have my health, so you could just inspire and impact a lot more people from the hardship and something. It's not fun when you have the hardship, but it's one of those silver linings you could think of and say, hey, well, at least when someone hears the story, when they're going through this kind of thing, they're going to be able to do a lot with it.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. And for those just getting into like the realm of mental health, what advice do you have for those people?
And look, I'm not a mental health expert. I would say eat high quality foods, to treat your body good. I mean, what the lowest I got mentally was when the gym was closed, and all these places were closed in LA, and I could not work out. And I realized that while you think working out is for your physical body, it is really for your mental health first. And the results you get on the physical side is just a bonus. So please move your body. Sometimes when I'm stressed out and I'm feeling low, all I need is just a good sweat. And it's not like I need to lift weights like I normally do. I just need cardio and I just need to sweat it out. And I feel so much better. So if you're not exercising, just exercise and then eat eat just better quality food because the bar is so low in terms of what is acceptable as food here in the US with all the chemicals, the preservatives, the processed foods. Don't eat like I did when I was a kid. That's not respecting your body. And the more you respect your body, I believe the more you're going to have a higher level of self-worth and higher mental health.
I love that. And I agree with that fully. My sport of choice is combat sports. It's like boxing or kickboxing. And there's nothing healthier, in my opinion, than dumping all of your emotional rage into a bag, right?
Yeah,
Just
and then
get,
sweating it out, getting it
yep.
out, and it's released. It's now released, and it's over. My
It's no
my
longer
business
a part
partner
of
is
you.
big into jujitsu, so he's a jujitsu guy, and in terms of humility as well. When you get your butt kicked, good way to be humbled.
Yeah, I can't. I remember a time that I was a boxing coach for about a year and a half and I loved it. And it was so much fun. And then I move over to a jujitsu gym and I have this thought. I was like, I'm going to hang in there with these guys. And I can't tell you how many times I would go home and just start crying because I mopped the floor, with my sweat and with my tears. And those guys just beat this. It's humbling. It really is. No. So Brad, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come onto my show to share your story and your lessons and all of that stuff. Tell us about your company, Empowering Men.
So sure, yeah. Empowerment is something that my business partner and I put together because I was helping people on the financial side. He's been a top health coach here in LA for years and years, helping men and women transform their body. And it was because his mom had rheumatoid arthritis and always struggled with all sorts of diseases and ailments his entire life. So he always treated his body like a temple, while on the flip side, I was the one that treated it as, hey, I need comfort food because I'm lonely, and then lost the weight. But seeing the correlation between physical health and financial health, where if you make the money, you can afford organic groceries, you can afford peptide therapy and some of these really cool protocols, stem cells and cryo and red light and so many cool things. But when you're struggling financially, you're just hoping to be able to put Pop Tarts on the table for your kids. And seeing that there's 1/3 of Americans, well, actually 2/3 of Americans are overweight, 2/3 are living paycheck to paycheck, 1/3 of Americans are obese, 1/3 of Americans making over 250,000 a year are still paycheck to paycheck. There's this commonality where if you can master your finances, you can also master your health. If you master your health, you could also master your finances. And the journey of losing weight and getting out of debt is the exact same journey, just the same way as you got into debt and you gained weight, the exact same way. So we combine that into a 90-day transformation for men only that are ready to step up as better fathers, better husbands, and really become a better provider and protector for their family, but also live longer so they can be around for their daughter or their son's wedding day.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So, again, thank you so much for coming on. I really, truly appreciate you and feel so much more connected because of all of the stuff you are willing to share. If if people want to get in contact with you, where can they find you?
Empowermen.co is the best just to check out what we have. But I've also been on LinkedIn a lot more since we're talking to companies and getting into employee wellness programs. So I am on LinkedIn. I've ignored it for many years. So Bradley Jarryd, Jarryd, is where I am on LinkedIn, and that's where I've just been more active.
Okay, perfect. And I'll make sure to have that stuff in the description notes as well so people can connect with you.
Awesome,
Again,
man. Well, Chase, dude, thanks so much, man. I haven't opened up like this in a while, so it's been very soothing and therapeutic. Therapeutic's probably the better word for me to go back to some of these memories and see where I have been and what I've overcome, and hopefully that offers some value to your audience.
it absolutely does. I know it does. And thank you. Thank you for your time and thank you for that kind compliment. And for those listening, if you haven't already shared this episode, please make sure to do so. Brad came on here and shared such beautiful and amazing lessons and skills. He shared a beautiful story that I know you feel connected to because I do as well. I've got the goosebumps just talking about it. So again, please share that. Please make sure to like and subscribe as well if you haven't already. And for those, just understand that I would love for you to come on my show. No story is too big, no name is too small. If you do have a story, I want to share it all. Just contact me at chase@thewellnesscenter.life, and I'd love to get you scheduled on the show. Thank you so much for joining us again today, guys. I hope everyone has a great rest of their day, and we'll see you guys on the flip side. Peace out.